So by now we've all seen the trailer for the House of Dragons series, the Game of Thrones spin-off or prequel House of Dragons. We've all seen that trailer. It looks really exciting. And I think the thing that we're all wondering is about, like, who are these people? Like, we see this dramatic story. And if you watch the previous video that I made, I kind of broke down the plot. But what is more interesting and what I'm more curious about is the characters. Who are these characters? And that's what's going to determine how we feel and how we interact with the plot. You know, with Game of Thrones, they had such rich character development. And we know George R.R. Martin, who's the creator of this show, you know, we know he's working with them, and we know he's going to have developed some incredible characters, which I think is quite interesting. So, guys, I told you the plot. If you don't know the plot, watch the previous video. I've made 2 videos about the plot of this show. But I want to talk about, who are these characters? Who could they be? Tell us a little bit about them, right? And I want to say some of my guessing. I want to guess. I'm going to give you my predictions, what I think who these people are going to be like. So we first have Princess Rhaenyra, right? This is the princess that is promised the throne, and you know, the vicious, and you know, she's promised the throne. Her father is king. He's unable to have an heir. And she's promised the throne. Then he remarries. When I say heir, I mean a male heir. He remarries Alicent of Hightower, and all of a sudden she has like 4 sons. And so, but he's already promised the throne to Princess Rhaenyra. So here's this thing. And so in the story, it's like, once he dies, they all fight for the throne. So here's what's interesting. It makes it seem as though Alicent of Hightower is probably like a wicked witch, one of those evil stepmothers, right? But I'm hearing that actually they're around the same age, Princess Rhaenyra and Alicent of Hightower, and they grew up quite close, as close friends. So that makes it quite interesting too, because it's now going to be tough. Whose side are we going to be on? You know, and so Alicent of Hightower, her father was Hand of the King. So her father would have plotted this scheme this way to get his daughter to marry the king, right? He would have schemed his way there. And she was just this young girl doing what her father told her to do. Even up until the king's death, her father is the one, sort of the puppeteer. She's just doing what her father will tell her to do. So what I see in this story is 2 women who grew up potentially as good friends, grew up as sisters when they were younger, best friends. And then the world sort of put them against each other, right? Everybody with their own agenda. Now let's talk about Princess Rhaenyra, right? She's married to Daemon Targaryen. So she's married to Daemon Targaryen, who is the king's younger brother. So this is quite interesting. Think about his perspective, because he's known as a little bit of a wild card, you know, like, I think it's like the youngest sibling syndrome, or right, the youngest child syndrome, right? So he's a little bit of a wild card. We don't know how wild, though. We have to watch the show to find out. But it seems as though he stole one of the dragon eggs to give. First of all, he's cheating on his wife, and he has a mistress. So apparently he stole one of the dragon eggs so he could give it to his mistress, because obviously his child is going to be Targaryen, and any Targaryen is going to be able to bear children. So is going to be able to ride dragons, right? So he stole one of the dragon eggs, and apparently the king sent the Hand of the King, Mr. Hightower, right? Sends him to retrieve the egg. So we see he's rebellious. But here's what's interesting, right? His older brother is king. When his brother dies, he would expect to be the king. You know, so as long as his brother doesn't have any sons. But the thing is, he was married to his brother's daughter, his niece. So that was a very political union. That was very political to ensure that, it's almost like the king wanted to ensure that his brother doesn't come and try and seize the throne. He gives it to his daughter, Rhaenyra, who is then married to Daemon. So Daemon seems like this, potentially could be this scheming, you know, individual that might try to kill Rhaenyra to be the king, right? that might be his goal. In a way, we think about Jon Snow killing Daenerys. Obviously, that's not why he killed Daenerys, but you're so close to the throne, you're almost there. Your wife is queen. You might want to off her head so that you could take the throne. But I don't think that might be the original ideas that he might have been having when he first married her. But now the king has 4 sons. 4 sons. And so that's what's going to be interesting. I'm really curious to see what Princess Rhaenyra's character is going to be like. I think about Alicent of Highwater. It's very easy to assume that she's this wicked witch that, went in there, seduced the king and got pregnant and had 4 kids. It's easy to paint her in that light, But at the end of the day, when we think about the fact that her father was handed the king, and we think about the minimal power young women have, and we think about the dynamics between Tywin Lannister and Cersei, and how she did exactly what her father told her to do. She did exactly you see what I'm saying? And how much power Tywin Lannister had, how much power he commanded as Hand of the King. Now, we don't know who Alicent's father, we don't know his character. We don't know what he's going to be like. It's going to be really interesting to meet these characters and see who they truly are and what their, pros and cons are, what their good traits are, what their bad traits are. It's going to be really interesting to see this. Another thing that's quite interesting is Prince Daemon and Princess Rhaenyra and their dynamic. We see them getting remarried apparently in the trailer, and they seem to have done some sort of blood pact. We see that I think they're bleeding and they put their blood together, put their hands together. I'm getting a lot of their relationship, even the way they look at each other, into each other's eyes. It might be very much a similar situation to Cersei Lannister and Jaime Lannister. They might have a very sick, twisted, incestuous relationship. I think it would be cliche for them to do that. So I don't think it's a little too on the nose. We've seen it before. So I think George R.R. Martin is going to give us something different, something dynamic. But I think it's definitely very interesting to see what happens there. So there's this woman as well. There's this older woman in the footage. And she's the cousin of King Viserys, right? The cousin. And she was supposed to be the queen. So she's there. She was supposed to be queen, but because she was a female, they seized the throne and they gave it to Viserys, right? King Viserys. We see her in the plot kind of saying,
"Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne."
Because the throne was actually meant to be her. So I think in the previous video, I might have said it might be her mom, but apparently, I've seen some other YouTubers cover it. Apparently, it's the cousin of the king, and she was actually the one that was supposed to be. But it went to the oldest male heir that's living, which was her cousin. Now, if that is the case, then that means it actually adds a very interesting component to Damien's character. It makes me wonder if Damien then is very ambitious because, he wasn't the king's son. Typically, when you have someone that was sort of like a second heir, second to the throne, like a second born child or something, they're not as ambitious. They always seem to be rogue. We always see that, right? Almost like Prince Harry. But at the same time, they never have their sights on the throne. But in this case, if his brother, Viserys, actually seized the throne, right, took the throne, then it makes sense that he's this ambitious person as well. It makes sense, that character dynamic. And so we see in the show, here's the thing about the show, because we see the old characters when they're younger and we see when they're older. So people are suggesting there might be flashbacks in the show, but I want to say that I really highly doubt there are going to be any flashbacks because I remember Dave and Dan, who are not participating in this show, but in an interview, they did say that flashbacks are lazy storytelling, and they wanted, when they were creating Game of Thrones, they did their best to avoid them or to do them in interesting ways, and that's why they had Bran become the three-eyed raven and look into the past in an interesting dynamic way, not a flashback, but in a present day sort of time traveling type of way. And so I don't, because of this, them saying this, that flashbacks are lazy storytelling, I don't think George R.R. Martin is going to use that as a tool. But I do think the story is going to start chronologically. I think it's going to start when she's young and we're leading up to when she's old. It only makes sense for them to do it that way. I'd be surprised if they employed flashbacks into this story. But anyway, great stuff. I'm really excited. Can't wait for August. Wow. We're a few months away, but it needs to get here faster. It's going to be exciting. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. My name is Kenim, and see you next time. Peace.